But the idea of this circle is there's no hierarchy. There's nothing which is, we don't claim that something is more important than the other thing, etc., etc. We just see it as a circle, and those pieces belong more or less together, and those people, in summary, create something which we could call another paradigm compared to traditional IT. But as we also learned, for example, from Bettini's keynote 2 hours ago, it's not necessary to do microservices because he said it's a monolith, yeah, and you do a good job with it, yeah. And it turns out that it really is about the communication and the culture and the ability to rethink everything you're doing permanently, yeah, and to think about how to make things better, yeah. This is much more important than maybe to fit to all of those or to one of those buzzwords over there. So here on stage we got people who have a look on that from different angles, yeah. And I just maybe you introduce shortly yourself and say in a few words, because it's about value creation in the end for customers, be it your customer who's providing a digital service or something like that, or the customers who just are using something, yeah. And maybe you just, you guys introduce yourself very shortly and then have an idea where in the circle do you see yourself and what's the angle from which you think you're kind of providing value to the game.
So my name's Paul Stack. I used to work for a company called OpenTable, which are a US company. I now work for a very tiny startup, which is 11 people for everything. And I see myself as pretty much the entire circle right now, just because because we're such a small company, we have bits and pieces of involvement with everything, and except microservices, because we don't have a product yet.
I'm Bethany Macri. I'm an engineer at Etsy, and we at Etsy are missing a lot of things on this circle, so this should be an interesting panel discussion. I am on the core platform team. We're an infrastructure team, so if I had to pick something that I work most closely with on this circle, it would probably be either the cloud or continuous delivery.
Should we add something?
Should we? We'll see.
I can put some additional post-its to the...
We'll see.
Sasha.
Yeah, my name is Sasha Möllering, and I work at Xanox, which is 100 meters over there, as a lead engineer. And currently, we're building a pretty cool event-driven architecture using all of those things shown in the screen. And especially, I'm involved in the whole cloud setup, container and continuous delivery chain. That's basically my job at the moment.
Yes. My name is Peter Rostov. I'm a system architect, freelancer, a very tiny, small company with 1 people, me, B42. I'm the solution. Of all these cycles, of all these things, and
you are the people.
Yes, I'm one of these people, I think. And the last year, I spent a lot of my time on this, on Mobi, on container technology that changed the world to rethink these IT, all these parts. I see these container technology changed the game for me.
As we've spoken so much about these things and about many more, we added this afternoon the little post-it of people. This was your idea.
Yes, my idea.
Really, yeah, we came to the conclusion that really people matters, involving people, inspiring people, having inspiring people matters. What's the idea behind that?
I think I see a lot of change in the industry to see the value in the people. All companies, when I talk with all of you guys, I talk, people are so important as success factor for IT. It is not a cost factor anymore, nor a resource or what. It is a people, a human, and it's very clever humans. We all talk a lot on this conference of all these cool ideas, microservices, container technologies, deliveries, and so on. Have so exciting experience with all these technologies, and I think this a value maker, people, and added on the picture to rethink IT. I want these people thing in the middle.
but off the back of that, as important as people are, culture is just as important, because if you can hire anyone, and if that person comes to the wrong company, it has a bad culture, or it has no trust environment, then you can hire the best engineers in the world, but you're still not going to deliver anything that's worthwhile for your customers.
You lose these people.
Yeah, actually, in the last couple of months, we tried to hire a specific mindset and people that have a specific mindset to fit into this new way of thinking software, and it was really hard to get decent people. So we started in Berlin, then we started in Germany, then we started in Europe, and then we started recruiting worldwide because it wasn't possible to get the right mindset.
I think something that Peter touched on is that it's not just about people in terms of human resources, but also about the quality of sort of being human. And I talked a little bit about this in my talk, but something that's really stressed at Etsy is that being human means that you will fail. And if you make technology, the technology will fail. And there's a lot of stress on understanding human error as part of our postmortem process. And John Allspaw, who's our Senior Vice President of Operations, is obsessed with understanding human error. So it's something that if you're bringing DevOps into your organization, I would stress sort of tangentially studying that field if you have time as a way of understanding what it means to be humans making technology.
This is the Sidney Dekker area.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Which is just fascinating.
Yeah.
It really is. The systems thinking and the systems failure and the psychology behind it. Because we all do fail, right? Wow.
So his book is called The Field Guide to Understanding Human Error, I think.
Yeah. And there's quite a few of his different books. I think he's got written 5 or 6 different books on it.
He's an all-star, yeah.
Yeah. And there's actually a couple of videos. If you Google DevOps Days Brisbane, Sidney Dekker, then you'll see like a 90-minute video on it. And the guy is a phenomenal speaker, and you'll actually start to think about how you fail and the reasons why you fail, and to make it seem normal. Because we usually, when we do fail, we're usually the type of, in IT we got a lot of introverts, and we stand in the corner and we go red-faced, and we don't want to take responsibility for failure. But when you're in the right culture and when you work with other people who are happy and they're grown up and mature enough to accept failure, it helps you mature as a person as well.
But I think for me it's very important to all of you make failures. We have a lot of errors, and I think one of these good thinking is learning from your failures. And when you see other guys make a failure or knapp before a failure, then you go to him and say, okay, can I help? That's really important when you see these rethinking, helping people, make your knowledge of everything available for all of your colleagues. That is very important.
Because you're talking about the mindset. But I would like to hear something about the quality of the people you would like to hire, not about the quality of being a human, because I'm quite sure it's not enough.
Well, I didn't understand the question.
What I would like to hear, what I was suggesting is not to talk about hiring humans, like people who are able to fail and able to learn from failing, also to hire people that have the quality, that are good enough to deliver the quality of software we would like to see. I think it's something also very important that you need qualified people also.
So I heard a really good analogy in this a couple of weeks ago, is that we shouldn't hire rock stars, we should hire members of the orchestra. And I actually think it came from an Etsy talk, which is, funnily enough, I think it came from Beer Ops' talk in Budapest. Yep. And what she meant there is that you can hire some amazing rock stars, but if they don't fit in with the other people who you work with, then it's very difficult and they alienate themselves.
That's not the only point. Of course you're right, but what I would like to hear is, do you say I
play with to be part of that orchestra. I think that's what you're actually asking. And especially for my company, I also wouldn't be 100% sure because technology changes relatively fast. And we see that today with microservices and so on. Hard to say. For now, yeah, maybe some Docker expert or something like that, but that's just the case now in beginning of 2015, mid 2015, it's Docker. What comes next, I don't know.
So personally speaking, for me, I don't hire for skills. I don't care what language you write in. I don't care what skill sets you have. And I know that's very easy to say. You can teach. So if you're a Go developer and you're being hired on the Java team, you can teach somebody Java, right? You can't teach somebody to not be an asshole. That is honestly it. An excuse. But I have been on the receiving end of working with people who believe that they have the skills in order to deliver the best solutions. And when they work in the same team as other people, you create friction. Now, a small amount of friction is good, okay? A small amount of friction helps create ideas and create trade-offs. But if you have one person who you work with who is that asshole, you don't want to work with that person. That's the trouble for me. So we can teach people skills. No, I know it's not. But my idea is that hire people for the right reasons, not just because they're going to be a rock star, work 18 hours a day and deliver software. Right? Because it's not sustainable. There has to be a work-life balance as well, right?
I think one of the main things is we're speaking about a really dynamic market, on the one hand in terms of the business needs out there, et cetera, on the other hand an explosion of technologies and new technologies which are there. So the classical concept of an experienced person, I would say, is this person has accumulated much wisdom over time. Yeah? But maybe this doesn't help anymore today. Now we're living in a world where we should look for persons who are able to rethink and relearn everything at every time. So it's a little different, you know?
Just because you have years of experience doesn't mean you can deliver value, right? That's the thing. It's like you can have somebody who's stuck in their ways, let's put it that way, and they're not able to relearn or become a blocker to a technology. So like Docker is one of the best examples out there, okay? Containers have been around for a long, long time. LXC has been around for a huge amount of time. But yet, there are some people in the industry who are like, it's never going to catch on. I'll stick to my VMs and I'll stick to my physical machines. And that works, and that's okay. It's whatever works for those people. But sometimes as long as you're susceptible that there are different ways in which to do things rather than here is the exact way I must deliver that solution every time.
So basically our hiring process is focusing on people that are eager to learn. So because if we stick to the old paradigms of, okay, how many years do you have experience with Java, EE, blah, 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 whatever. Actually, I don't really care. It's about, okay, you have a foundation, and we need this foundation, but we don't hire for a specific set of technologies. Well, if you are rockstar in one specific language and we do a different language, that's fine for us because we can invest in training and stuff like that. But it's more like, okay, how much do you want to learn, and do you have GitHub repositories? Also, one of the things I will take a look into. Take a look into your code. How is it structured? How does it feel? So, how is the interview going? Is this one very arrogant person that is an expert in a specific set? Then I would rather don't hire this person, but more the junior that asks interesting questions and is really interested in what we're doing and what we want to achieve in the next years.
I guess your mileage may vary. Different people might have different ideas on what they're looking for when they're hired.
Weiter eine Wortmeldung? No?
In our company, when we are hiring people, we also look for skill, but it's not the main fact. Because we have made mostly 2 meetings, and one other guy, so not the same in both meetings, one other guy has to be in the meeting and has to say, okay, he fits in our culture or not. And if the other guy say, I don't like his nose, or something like that, then we will not hire the people. It doesn't mind if he is a rock star or not. So for us, he has to fit in. The culture is more important than the skills.
Stack Overflow has single-handedly helped the developer community because you can Google any answer to any programming technology in the world. You can't Google how to be a better, how do you fit in a culture, right? You just can't do that.
But again, it's not about being an asshole or not an asshole or finding, because now we need to take care that it's not going to be trivial, because of course 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we also would have said we don't want to hire somebody who's arrogant, yeah? The question from my perspective is, did your opinion change during the last, let's say, 5 or 7, 8 years according to the industry and according to technology and according to the challenges which are out there?
I'm an Apache member. We work on a lot of the community process. On the mantra of all members of Apache communities, community first. And it's also true in a company way. You must have a real team. And you must have colleagues that have fascinating things on it, but you must see it and you must like him, and so it's very important for us in all these massive growing projects in the Apache space to have a real community, to work together, to communicate together. Communication is very, very, very important in the community space when you make pages and fix bugs and accept features, or say a guy, nice feature, but not for us. It's very important to have a really cool style to communicate with all us guys. And I think this rethinking thing is very, very important every time to rethink your position. It's very important to accept other ideas, and so that is very important for me I can accept another standpoint. And sometimes I'm thinking 2 weeks later, good idea, I'm not agreed with that. Or so, no, that's really, I must accept and hear, and so all these peoples, and you say container technology is a very important example for that. We use it before, and now we use Docker, simpler, has a nice logo, and so nice community. And that is the important thing of these Docker thinking. For me, it's a community, a very friendly community, to accept ideas, technology stuff, and say there's really good vibrations in this community. For me, to learn more and more technologies and learn more of these DevOps space, really technologies, digging up in the kernel, do it 20 years later, first time. Now I can read these things, accept C, learning Go, and all these things, learning console or all the other toolings, and learn from these guys, accept new metric monitoring systems, and so this acceptance for me is very important to these rethinking, or say, okay, yeah, cloud technology is now acceptable for a lot of people to build their software in containers and ship it in their own data center, and when the time comes, they can ship it also in the cloud.
But coming back to Alkan's question, because I think he wanted to hear something about skills.
No, it's okay. I've got answers. The things we've got three things. One is mindset. The other one is being an asshole. One is mindset. The other one is being an asshole. And the one is having something like reputation, or showing that you are good in adopting something. So this is something that fits into what I would expect, something like a skill, being able to learn something. And that what I would have loved to hear. It's not only about being nice to each other.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
we're living in a
you still need people to deliver systems.
And that's what I would love to hear.
But aside from being nice to each other or not, aside from a friendly community, which I think is maybe by your definition a nice to have, but not a requirement. What is a requirement and something that we screen for very, very heavily when we hire is your ability to communicate in prose. If you can't communicate in the States in English, your idea clearly, you are not going to be useful for us, because if we plan to be around for a long time, and if you go off in a corner and build an amazing system by yourself, and you can't explain any of it to anyone else or teach anyone else about it, you've just created a wonderful system that probably is not perfect, and it will fail at some point, and that no one is able to know anything about. So something that we screen for that I think is a practical and a human skill is communication.
And then that actually goes into as well, so I have to put my hand up. I wrote a blog post like 4 years ago about how I hate remote working. Yeah, that was a silly thing to do. Because remote working is really important now. So if you're a small company and you're located in London or you're located in Berlin, you've got a certain pool of people who you can actually hire. As Sasha pointed out, you go Berlin, Germany, Europe, the world, okay? And you have to be able to communicate in the way Bethany was saying if you want to hire like remote people around. And that's where that's why I know people always say is that it's not a skill or a checkbox exercise for skill set, but communication is very difficult if you're 8 time zones away and you're not able to talk to each other, you're not able to work in the same systems.
But here's another point. You told me in the afternoon that you used to be a software developer, and then finally you realized software development became boring to you because you said all the problems are solved.
I was in .NET development, in fairness. And most problems in .NET are solved.
Now, the interesting thing is what you said, the interesting part is now, you said the big challenge now is in infrastructure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel is that infrastructure is where software development was like 5 years ago. It's like an explosion of tools, an explosion of different ways of doing things, and it's fun. It's really fun. I enjoy getting up and going to work every morning. I enjoy going home at night more. but I still enjoy actually going and working and building systems and trialing them and working out, like one of the big projects I'm working on right now is automated security vulnerability testing. That's fun. If you've ever tried to hack your own website, it's awesome fun. I never would have done that before. In fact, I always used to hate people that hacked us as my last company because it always made my job more difficult. So.
And then one of the cool things is that the line between software development and infrastructure gets more and more blurry. So actually, what is infrastructure? Well, if you go into the cloud, then you can write a script or an application that creates your infrastructure, and you have to test it, and you have to tag it, and you have, and basically you have to do or to apply the same concepts as for your product development. So you have a release cycle and stuff like this, and it makes things more complicated, actually. It is very, very hard to write decent infrastructure code, in my opinion. Especially how to test a Docker container or how to test your...
Do you have read something of my website?
Yes, I have, but tool support is still lacking, lacking some important aspects. Or if you want to test your setup, for instance, in Azure or in Amazon Web Services, and you have to do integration tests with your own data center. So this is really, really hard. And I spent weeks to test it properly.
Yes, that's very... It's complicated stuff is with infrastructure to test it, to make quality. The same that we have in programming languages for a long time. It's very, very hard to programming infrastructure. You have a lot of components that really must run. You must have hardware sometimes.
It's
really the hardware, and it's not so easy.
It's actually what I describe myself. I'm an infra coder. I'm not an ops person. Like
yes, I'm also the titled
ops
infra coder.
People are incredible, okay?
Yes.
And like networking side of things and the security side of things, those people that work in that area are exceptional, right? They know their stuff, they know networks, they know physical infrastructure. I'm a coder, right? And I will code my way, probably too far, too many layers of abstraction, but I will code my way out of a solution. And if that's infrastructure, then that's fine, and I'll happily do that.
Hey, thank you. Well, I think it's this overall DevOps thingy is also somehow a way to deal with the complexity that grew over the last decades or years. IT has also always been somehow complex and complicated, but the more people are involved in IT and the more important IT gets in the world, the more complex it will probably get, because more people are working on more software, more different types of software, more different types of infrastructure. So this means that the traditional setup of developers and operators, if I do imagine them being on a balloon, for example, you have on the one side the developers, on the other side of the balloon, there are the ops, and you're just making, blowing air into it, so making it more complex, the overall IT world, the more they get apart from each other. And this is one of the reasons why I do think that we are trying to deal with that fact by giving it names like DevOps, or trying to cover that with services or ideas like the ones that are, well, on your circle here. But that's just my 2 cents.
I think my personal reaction of your talk is we are on the way with the container to make binary executables ready, as we like before with libraries, with draw repositories. So now we build complete, ready to use software. And the next generation is to scribe a network of those components to compose these together and share it with all people, so that not all people must share the pain with all these little details in the infrastructure. One configuration parameter makes a difference, that you fail or not.
But it'll fail.
Daniel and Lucas have shown us in these switching one parameter of enable in your virtual machine a network 1 or 0 makes a difference. It works or not. And it is very, very complicated, and we engineers must create artifacts that other people can directly use. That is what we infracoder now are thinking, and what container technology can be, I hope, can change. That
Here's
is my
another comment.
research topic, to change all these details.
Regarding infrastructure test, the thing is, we're talking about DevOps, so we're learning as ops from the devs, and they do all the testing, because it adds value, and I can't see a big difference between writing tests for infrastructure and for code. And it's definitely worth it, because I know in the morning when I come to my office, just 2 hours ago, we just built our complete infrastructure, tested them, so I'm absolutely sure everything is working. And if I'm doing some change, the build chain will run, and I can be totally sure everything is working, still working, and nothing broken. So it's definitely worth it.
Yes, it's true. It needs time and people to fix it.
But the thing is, if I automate it, I'll save work. I have to invest some time, but in the later end, I can just focus on the real work and not doing some, config fixes or stuff, because I definitely know it's working. So it's saving time. It gives me some more time to do the real interesting work.
DevOps isn't free. DevOps isn't something you can just go and you just switch on in your company and go, yeah, we're great now. It's not checkbox exercise. It's just about delivering better value, right? And if that means that reducing the time in order to build and test your environment, then that's a good thing. And if that's DevOps for what your company does, then that's brilliant. But that, other people may have different definitions, and it may suit their companies better. And that's something that a lot of people don't get. They get, like, when they automate their deploys or automate their hook, and they're like, we're DevOps. It's like, it's not quite as easy as that. It's not quite as checkboxy.
Nope.
We are agile. We had a 2-day course on Scrum. We are agile.
Well, there are actually certifications for DevOps now. You can get certified.
I have made this course here.
And it'll be right at the top of your resume. And then, of course, that'll invest and make people hire you.
Here's one more question to the audience. Did you miss something at this conference? I'm sure you missed something, because a conference like that cannot cover everything. But is there something really important you missed? I'd like to really hear your feedback, or all of us would be interested. Any comments from your side?
Perfect.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'm more the dev guy, and sometimes I had the feeling that the dev part was a little smaller than the prod part, because the ops part, because a lot of talks were around these ops things, and especially for enterprise users or startup that have really cool products. That was very interesting. But for example, we are doing a lot of projects for customers, yeah? And sometimes I miss these ideas how we could, for example, get more into the ops side.
Learning.
That's a tough question.
It's not just about the know-how. I mean, get into the ops side in these things like we build a product and then we give it to our customer and then they do the ops stuff. So how can we get into that? And how can we,
You build it, they run it.
Yeah, exactly. So how
Stefan Ops, right?
maybe I misquoted Werner Vogel.
Yeah, but that is basically the old way of thinking, and I would love to see it progress in there as well. Maybe in the next years we will see it because our customers are adopting it a little bit more. But at the moment, I think it's really hard for us to push them in this direction.
I think one of my ideas on this topic is when you build your software in containers, it's very easy for you to update your customer needs.
Containers a solution.
You can deliver it, and they can test it, and when you are wrong, they can drop it very easily. It can go back to the other version of your container software. That's very easy for you. I think that is one of the solutions that you have. You build your software in pre-executable things, not packaged. It is executable things. It's a really executable values that you give your customer, not all the software in an install or document or whatever. That is what I think can change your things, and in your situation you can learn a lot about you package your software pre-built, tested better with different configurations, and you can use container technology for your needs, your different configuration of your customer side.
Now you mentioned, you mentioned that you missed some more dev stuff during this conference. Maybe there are some ops who miss some more ops stuff at this conference, because it's really hard with DevOps.
Like I came at things from your angle. I am a developer, and the way I get into the space was I love continuous integration. Then I moved into continuous delivery, and then I realized that continuous delivery wasn't just me pushing software to Jenkins or TeamCity and then it taking over. Is that there's a whole raft of other areas. You know, you've got environment automation, environment test, and penetration test, and security testing. You can bring all of those into your everyday workflow as an engineer, as a software engineer, because you've still got to get a delivered product to your customer, and they expect certain criteria to be met. So if you can bring all that in as part of your software delivery, then you are very much on the way towards building better systems.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed, just to give that feedback, because I had quite the opposite expression, and I do come from the ops world. So sometimes I was sitting here and saying, okay, that was pretty much dev, and well, the questions that actually came were pretty dev. So I would say it was the opposite expression, which also says something, which means, okay, so here are different people sitting all together, trying to work out the idea of DevOps all together. That's the point. I will still stay an ops guy, and you will probably also stay a dev guy, but I've learned something from developers. And I hope you also learn something from ops people. So I think that's the value of such a conference at the end, that we all do learn, like we already pointed out.
That was like a virtual hug.
Two things from my side, because it's all about empowering people, and what I would love to see more next time and is a great conference, is getting more hands-on, telling the people, look, it's quite easy to use it. Just help them using it. And the other one is getting more vegetarian food. Sorry.
for ops or for devs? Okay, yeah. Yeah. Some more comments?
Well, the thing that I wanted to say to you was that DevOps, to me, is a collection of things that together are an approach to a solution. And if it's not the right solution to a problem that you have, meaning it doesn't sound like you have a problem for which you can just shove all of these things together and just DevOps your way through something. So I guess I'm trying to make the point that DevOps is not just for the sake of DevOps, however you define it.
Try and implement DevOps without mentioning DevOps.
Very difficult.
Yeah. Some more comment?
Yeah. What I would like to see more would be a little bit more real open space. So like in sitting together and pitching their own topics and not only lightning talks, but real open space, because like on most conferences, best talks are on the floor or on the evening events or so, because there's a lot of interesting people here. And it's, this peering and this peer talk is really valuable for me, at least. So I would like to see this more.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, yeah.
All right. So actually, different topic now. My question.
Enough of this
be,
DevOps.
No, my question for each one of you is, what pain points are you currently still feeling? We already had, like, briefly touched the topic of testing the infrastructure. What else is there for each one of you that you still are missing? And if so, like, what is the next step to move one step further? And like, where are we going now?
That's a good final question and a good
JVM.
opportunity for final round of answers. Yeah.
It was one of the points I talked about.
How much money you pay?
It was one of the things I mentioned in my talk, is that the JVM, it's wizardry that I just do not understand and I need to get better at, because a lot of ops tools are Java based. So that's my pain point.
As I mentioned in my talk, we're still in a very real way having to burn down some technical debt by first having chosen Postgres. So that's our technical challenge right now, is that we have to migrate that data. On a more cultural level, we have a LAMP stack, and it can be very hard to attract engineers who are just dying to work on PHP. So if you build for the long term, you're presumably choosing technologies that are stable and will become more stable over time. And the tension that creates is that you might have engineers who want to work on sexier things.
Network is so hard. 3 years ago, I thought, network is just the Cisco box over there, just plugging cables and it's working. But network is so hard, and every time something fails, it always has to do with network setup. I just want to go the way or to be virtualized somehow or so, because it's my personal pain point at the moment.
Always blame the network.
I think the real pain point for me is design APIs and add on these API uses security. It's a very, very hard domain. I spend a lot of my life in security discussions and APIs. And API design means splitting your system in other ways, in new ways to communicate right and dating up and stabilize and so systems. It's a real pain point in the industry, to write splitting your software in real good pieces and have a clever design that our software finished. Finishing software is really, really hard.
Yeah, so thank you very much for coming, for being here, for still being here, for participating, for giving us feedbacks, for communicating, for listening, for everything. Thanks for you guys at the panel. Thanks for all the speakers. Thanks to the Orga team. Thanks to everybody. Technology, audio, video. Alissa for the microphone. Thank you.